Hey guys, it's Miles. Let's talk about some more advanced component modeling and its relationship to architecture. So we've looked at Piranesi, for example, and we can see how you can create this tremendous sense of scale and deep space and a very dramatic visual experience through architecture. And if we break it down for a moment, here's another architectural photo. You can see that architecture really is about repetition of elements, that you see how this whole piece is broken down into the big arch and then these tiers here. And then if we isolate one of these tiers, we can say that that in turn is broken down into another component, and then we could probably add another breakdown. We've got these little arch elements here that are repeated and repeated. So we're going to talk today about how to build an arch using component modeling. Alright, let's go over to Maya and get started. I'm going to use a polygon pipe primitive here. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to go out here, draw it out, and drag it up, and now I have a pipe. Now I'm going to select my pipe, and I'm going to go over here to the attribute editor. The default is for this to be the channel box, but go ahead and click on the attribute editor tab. If you don't see it up there, it should be under Window, Attribute Editor. Okay, and so we've got our attribute editor here. And what this shows us is we can set the parameters on our primitives. Depending on the primitive type, we can go in and change the parameters. We can add detail, we can take it away, we can get this thing set up just the way we want it. We can also change the radius, we can change the height, and we can change the thickness as well. So I'm not too worried about this right now, but what I am going to recommend is that go ahead and set your subdivisions axis to 20. Okay, let's hit spacebar and pop back out here. And then let's hit spacebar again on the front view. Now my next move here is I want to rotate this pipe so that it's facing us in the front view. Now I could do that from the channel box. I could just select my object, get the channel box going, and go over here and do a rotate 90 degrees on X, and it would do it, and that would be great. But let me show you how to do that. I'll zero that back out again. Let me show you how to do that in the attribute editor. So in the attribute editor, you can go here, and this is where we set our subdivisions and everything else. But if we go to ppipe1 on this top set of tabs, these are the nodes that are used to construct an object. And this node contains the position, rotation, and scale information that we see in the channel box. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go rotate, and this is the X, Y, and Z columns, and I'm just going to put a 90 degrees here on X, and now it's going to rotate there. Alright, so now I'm going to move this object, and I'm going to snap it to the grid. And so the the pivot point of this object is right exactly in the middle of this circle. So I'm going to hold down X on my keyboard, and when I do that, I hold it down, and you notice that this box in the center changes to a circle, and that means it's going to snap to the grid points. And now I want to put it on, you guessed it, world 0 right there. Now I can let go of X, it turns back to a box. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and show you how to delete faces. I'm going to right click on the object, choose face from the marking menu. I'm going to just select these faces and hit the delete key. And I'm going to do the same thing for these faces down here. Delete. Now I'm going to hit the space bar again to zoom back out. I'm going to delete my faces from the side view. So I'm going to go here, select all of those faces, and hit delete. And now I have just this flat, two-dimensional arc that I can use to start building my arch with. Now I can right click on this again to object mode. Notice that the pivot point is out here where the original pipe was. So I'm going to go up here to modify, center pivot, it's going to center it within those lines, and now I can go back, spacebar back here to my side view, hold down X to snap to grid, and then just drag it on the Z-axis there until it snaps and lines up perfectly on world 0. So generally when you're modeling in 3D, you'll want to keep things there on world 0. It just makes life a lot easier. Alright, now here's a cool trick. I'm going to right click on my object and choose edge this time. And an edge, remember, is just 2 points. I'm going to select that edge. Now sometimes the move gizmo will get in the way, so this is a good time to hit Q, or just go up here and use your select tool so there's nothing in the way. Select the first edge, hold down Shift key, select the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth edge. And now I'm going to use extrude. And when I hit extrude, it's going to let me pull these edges off like that. Pretty nifty. So I've extruded the edges and not the faces as we've been doing before. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here, I'm going to select vertex, and I'm going to select that vertex. I'm going to hold down X, and hit W for the move tool. Now I'm going to hold down X, and now this will snap to where I want it to snap up here. I'm going to snap this one down like this, and I'm just going to go ahead and snap these into place, something like this. And maybe I'll just pull this over here for right now, I think. Great. Now if you want, you could go ahead and kind of adjust these just to make this look a little neater, but I don't think it really matters at this point. But just so you know, you can edit verts that way. Okay. Alright, next I'm going to go back to edge mode. I'm going to select these two edges. Oops, Q for select so it's not in the way. Select those two edges. Now hit extrude. Go ahead and just pull those. Whoops, sometimes that will happen there. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. Vertices and edges actually have directions to them, so that can sometimes be a little bit tricky. But for now, I'll just use the offset function here, and I'll just right click and drag. Left click and drag. There we go. Alright, so now we have this very suspiciously arch looking thing here. And now we could go ahead and extrude this, and we'll have an arch. Alright, so now I'm going to go into face mode. Just select all these faces here. Spacebar back out. Let's look at it here. There we go. Go up here to extrude. And let's go ahead and extrude that out. And we've got an arch. Now, if I wanted to as well, I could go ahead and extrude this out. Extrude, and let's pull that out. So that's looking pretty good. So now we've basically learned how to add faces and do extrusions off of edges. And now I'm going to show you how to mirror something. So now, to prepare for my mirror, I'm going to go back to object mode. I'm going to select my object, and I'm going to say, let's say, modify center pivot. And the pivot, you'll now notice, is not on the center point. And in order to mirror an object properly, you pretty much always want to have the pivot aligned to the center point. So how do I do that? Well, I hit the insert or the home key, and then I hold down X so it'll snap to the grid, and I move it along the X axis until it snaps onto the center point. Then I can hit insert or home again, and I'm back in business. You can also hold down the D key, I believe, to edit the pivot point. Yes, you can just hold down the D key and edit it that way too. Now don't do this quite yet, but I just want to demonstrate the basic idea. So when I go up here and get ready to mirror, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to mirror, but don't do it yet, and I'll show you why. So to mirror something, go up here to Edit. There are a couple ways to do this, but we'll use this technique at first. We'll use Edit, Duplicate, Special, and then we'll click on the Options box here. I do that, this comes up. Now, for this modeling technique, we'll use an instance here, and we'll set a scale of -1 on the x-axis, -1, and then we'll hit Apply. Now we can close this here. Alright, so looks pretty good. So what it's done is it's mirrored this over. Now the nice thing about using an instance is that if I want to keep modeling on this, whatever changes that I make to one side or the other here, so if I want to move this vertex out here, it'll automatically update it on the other side. So this idea of symmetry modeling will be really important for most of what we do, you know, even when we get into organic models and human bodies and stuff like that. But this is a way it saves you all this extra work of not having to duplicate everything else. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to object mode, and I'm going to delete my instance over here. And the reason why I'm going to delete that is because I have these interior faces. You don't want to have interior faces when you're duplicating something, because it will cause rendering problems and adds extra weight to your geometry, which you do not want, and it gets ugly really fast. So what we're going to do is go back to face mode, select our faces that we want to delete. I can hold down the Shift key and then hit delete. And now those interior faces are cleaned out, and now we are ready to go ahead and but before we do that duplication, I want to just make sure I kind of clean this up first, and I'll do that by going up here to Edit, Delete All by Type, History, and that will get rid of all of these extra nodes that have shown up here in the attribute editor, and that will tend to give me a cleaner copy. So now if I just go back to object mode and double check my pivot is in the right spot, now with this selected, I'll go up here to Mesh, Mirror Geometry, click on the options box here to the right, and like I did before, I'll choose -x for the mirror direction, and I'll have merge with the original and merge vertices on. Now I'll hit mirror, and lo and behold, we have our complete arch. Just to double check, I'm going to go to vertex mode and make sure that these vertices got merged correctly, and I'll do that by going up here to display, heads up display, poly count, and now it'll tell me when I go and click and drag on that little area, I've only got one vert, so that means I have the verts have been merged. There aren't two on top of each other, so that's what I want. So that's a quick demo on how to make a more complicated object using component modeling.